Welcome back to our channel where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on Catherine, Princess of Wales and her royal family. We provide you with the exciting news, royal family in Trembles, after King Charles kicks out Sarah Ferguson and Andrew. According to an insider source, King Charles kicks out Sarah Ferguson from royal estates as Andrew booted out of Royal Lodge. In a decisive break with the scandal-plagued past, King Charles evicts Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson from Royal Lodge, bringing about the fall of the House of York. A dramatic and unusual decision that heralds a definite end to an age of royal indulgence and controversy. King Charles III has legally begun the process to evict his brother Prince Andrew from his long-standing residence at Royal Lodge. This move is a significant step that signifies the end of an era that has been marked by scandal and royalty. The judgment, which also essentially means that Andrew's ex-wife, Sarah, Duchess of York, is no longer able to reside in the 30-room Windsor house, is the last definitive step in the lengthy and painful process of the man who was once known as the Duke of York. An official notice was given to Andrew by Buckingham Palace, which ordered him to give up the 75-year lease on the ancient home. Following the disastrous relationship that the disgraced prince had with the convicted sexual offender Jeffrey Epstein, this step represents the culmination of years of public indignation and rising pressure on the monarchy to break all links with the prince. This action is the most important step that King Charles has made since he got to the throne in order to save the institution of the monarchy. It demonstrates a clear and unwavering commitment to his vision of a slimmed-down and more responsible royal family. While Andrew was stripped of his military ties, royal patronages, and the use of his Royal Highness HRH title by his mother, the late Queen Elizabeth II, in January 2022, the exile from his treasured residence is a highly personal and public banishment. Buckingham Palace issued a statement that was both emphatic and striking in its confirmation of the transfer, which caused reverberations all around the world. The announcement added, "His Majesty has today initiated a formal process to compel the surrender of the lease for Royal Lodge. This legal process was initiated today. Mr. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's residence at the Grace and Favour property has been effectively terminated as a result of the ruling. In spite of the fact that he continues to refuse to acknowledge the claims that have been made against him, the censures are considered to be essential in order to safeguard the institution. The repercussions include more than just Andrew himself. Sarah Ferguson, who has been living in the enormous property with her ex-husband for more than 20 years in a living arrangement that is notoriously unorthodox, will also be ordered to evacuate the grounds. The divorced couple's ongoing cohabitation had been a subject of public curiosity and a symbol of their continuing, although complicated, family connection. This signals the end of an era for the pair who had been living together after their divorce. As a result of being deprived of his titles, his house, and his public life, the man who was once second in line to the throne, a famed helicopter pilot during the Falklands War, and generally believed to be the Queen's favorite son, now faces the prospect of a future in effective exile. The princely styles that he has worn since birth have been made effectively obsolete, and from this point forward he will simply be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The Royal Lodge, a residence that is rich in history. More than just a change of location, the loss of Royal Lodge represents a profoundly symbolic breaking of Andrew's tie to the core of the royal family. This is because Royal Lodge was Andrew's first residence. The property is not your typical apartment or house. Beginning in the 17th century, the location, which is situated inside Windsor Great Park, has been the location of royal constructions. The current structure, which is a Grade II listed mansion, was constructed in the middle of the 19th century and underwent considerable expansion in the 1930s for the Duke of York, who would later become King George VI for the period. A magnificent saloon, expansive formal gardens, and 7 bedrooms are among the roughly 30 rooms that are included inside its center part, which is comprised of 3 stories with wings that are 2 stories in height. There is a profound emotional importance associated with the property for the royal family. The Duke and Duchess of York, who would later become King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, often known as the Queen Mother, moved into Royal Lodge in 1931 with their 2 young children, Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret. A considerable chunk of the future Queen Elizabeth II's upbringing was spent at the estate, which was known for its bucolic atmosphere. The well-known small home known as Y. Buthenbach, also known as the Little House, can be seen on the grounds. It is a fully working 2/3 size thatched playhouse that was presented to Princess Elizabeth by the people of Wales in the year 1932. It was in this cottage that the little princess was taught the fundamentals of housekeeping, and it continues to be a treasured piece of royal history. After the passing of King George VI in 1952, the Queen Mother continued to utilize Royal Lodge as her principal rural getaway, a house that was considered to be a grace and favor until the time of her ultimate passing in 2002. The revered grandmother breathed her last breaths inside the confines of Royal Lodge with her daughter, Queen Elizabeth II, by her side. She was surrounded by her family till the very end. It was in 2003 that Prince Andrew was able to gain the lease for the property after the passing of his grandmother. A one-time premium of £1 million was paid by him for the 75-year lease, which was scheduled to expire in the year 2078. This transaction has subsequently been subjected to a great deal of scrutiny. He was not needed to pay rent in accordance with the provisions of the agreement with the Crown Estate. Nonetheless, he was responsible for paying for all of the maintenance and refurbishing work that was performed on the dilapidated property. It is said that he spent more than £7.5 million on the renovation of the Georgian property, which included the addition of contemporary facilities such as an indoor swimming pool. The year 2004 was the year when Andrew, together with his 2 children, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, moved into the establishment. In 2008, his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, joined him, therefore establishing their one-of-a-kind connection that had developed after their divorce. Despite the fact that they had divorced in 1996, the pair continued to maintain an extremely tight relationship. They continued to live together in the magnificent Windsor mansion and presented a unified front while they were raising their girls. A friendship that led to the downfall of a prince is that of the Epstein scandal. Andrew's remarkable demise may be linked back to his ill-judged and long-lasting association with Jeffrey Epstein, the infamous American billionaire and convicted sex offender. This friendship was the underlying cause of the spectacular downfall he experienced. Although it was revealed by BBC News as early as March 2011, the relationship was producing a steady stream of criticism. However, it would take almost a decade for the full devastating scope of the scandal to surface and compel the royal family to take action. Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Epstein's lover at the time and a British socialite who would eventually be convicted of sex trafficking, is the one who introduced Andrew to Epstein for the first time in 1999, according to Andrew. Following that, Andrew entered into a relationship that exemplified an astounding lack of judgment and would eventually result in the loss of his house, his titles, and his reputation. In the year 2000, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were invited as guests to a party that was held at Windsor Castle to celebrate Prince Andrew's 40th birthday. The party was hosted by Queen Elizabeth II. This event brought to light the substantial nature of their relationship. Epstein had achieved a profound level of integration inside Andrew's inner group. The claims that directly involved Prince Andrew are quite serious and highly unsettling. Virginia Giuffre, whose maiden name was Roberts, made a public allegation in 2014 that she had been subjected to sexual contact with Prince Andrew on 3 different occasions when she was just 17 years old. She claimed that she had been trafficked by Epstein. As far as she was concerned, the first occurrence took place in March of 2001 in Ghislaine Maxwell's mansion near London. It is believed that Epstein's second and third contacts took place at his house in New York City and on his own island in the Caribbean, which is known as Little St. James. Giuffre later detailed that the third encounter involved group sexual acts on Epstein's island with the financier and approximately 8 other girls who appeared to be under the age of 18 and didn't really speak English. The allegations painted a sickening picture of systematic abuse and exploitation, with a senior member of the British royal family allegedly participating in the very crimes that would eventually lead to Epstein's arrest and Maxwell's imprisonment. The disastrous interview with the BBC, an event of royal implosion. In a mistaken effort to clear his reputation, Prince Andrew consented to participate in a television interview which would go on to become one of the most disastrous public relations catastrophes in the history of the contemporary royal family. In November 2019, he participated in an interview with Emily Maitlis for the main news show of the BBC, which is called Newsnight. The interview, which was conducted within Buckingham Palace, was conducted with the purpose of calming the storm of criticism and providing Andrew with the opportunity to voice his opinion on the matter. On the contrary, it turned out to be a lesson in conceit, implausibility, and a surprising lack of humanity. During the course of the interview, Andrew made a number of odd and highly criticized arguments against the allegations. He said that he had no recall of ever having a meeting with Virginia Giuffre, despite the fact that a picture that has since become notorious depicts him with his arm around her waist at Ghislaine Maxwell's residence in London. An alibi that has since gained notoriety was offered by him in response to the claim that he had an affair in March of 2001. He said, "I was at Pizza Express in Woking with my daughter Beatrice." Furthermore, he said that he could not have been sweating on a dance floor with Giuffre, as she had stated, due to a medical ailment that he had acquired during the Falklands War that rendered him incapable of perspiring. What was perhaps the most distressing aspect of all was his apparent lack of guilt or concern for the innumerable victims that Epstein had caused. Andrew's response to the question of whether or not he regretted his connection with the convicted pedophile was as follows: "The people that I met and the opportunities that I was given to learn, either by him or because of him, were actually very useful." Immediate and largely unfavorable responses were received from the general population. Hannah Bardell, who was serving as the Member of Parliament for Livingston at the time, referred to the interview as sickening. She stated that Prince Andrew literally has no remorse or regard for the women abused and clearly does not see the problem with being pals with Epstein. The Guardian described the interview as an exchange that summed up a grotesque mismatch between the Duke of York's language and demeanor and the gravity of the allegations that continue to surround him. The repercussions were rushed. Andrew, who had once been a key working royal representing the Queen both at home and abroad, was effectively cast into internal exile, according to a statement released by Buckingham Palace on November 20, 2019, just 4 days after the broadcast. The statement announced that Andrew would be suspending his public duties for the foreseeable future. The complicated role that Sarah Ferguson plays. There is an additional worrisome facet to the controversy that is brought about by Sarah Ferguson's personal links to the Epstein incident. In March of 2011, Ferguson acknowledged that Epstein had paid Johnny O'Sullivan, who had previously served as her personal assistant, the tune of £15,000 in order to assist her in paying off a part of her enormous personal debts. The Evening Standard had an interview with Ferguson, during which he expressed his profound contrition. "I personally, on behalf of myself, deeply regret that Jeffrey Epstein became involved with me in any way," she stated. "I take full responsibility for my state of mind. I abhor pedophilia and any form of abuse against children, and I am aware that this was a tremendously poor decision on my part," she said. On the other hand, following discoveries seemed to indicate that her private sentiments were more complicated. A subsequent investigation revealed that Ferguson had written an email to Epstein after he had issued this public apology. In it, she said, "You have always been a steadfast, generous, and supreme friend to me and my family." This inconsistency between her public repentance and private praise demonstrated a continuous allegiance to Epstein, which further harmed her credibility. She also praised Epstein in private. Ferguson has maintained a public attitude that is strongly devoted to her ex-husband throughout the whole of the incident. In an interview with The Times in the year 2021, she provided a nuanced description of her living circumstances, saying, "When I'm in the United Kingdom, I'm fortunate enough to stay at Royal Lodge." During a televised interview in 2024, she cleverly skirted questions regarding the alleged schism between King Charles and Andrew by saying, "I'm a guest for a start." This statement was made in response to the topic of whether or not she would call it her home. "I am very fortunate to be a visitor, and I am also a very comfortable guest. I try to avoid becoming involved in the conversations that my brothers have because I believe that this is the most secure place to be." Uncovering the Last Secret's memoirs and electronic mail. Over the course of many years, Prince Andrew said that he had irrevocably cut all relations with Epstein during a meeting that took place in New York in December of 2010. With each new piece of evidence that came to light, this position, which was a major pillar of his defense, became more unsustainable. Bloomberg News was able to acquire court files that indicated email interaction between Andrew and Epstein that lasted until at least February 2011. This correspondence began around the beginning of 2025. Through their emails, the two men were seen discussing unfavorable accounts in the press. In a conversation that took place after the publication of the infamous photo of Andrew with Virginia Giuffre, it was reported that Andrew told Epstein that they were in this together, and that they would have to rise above it. This revelation demonstrated that Andrew had not been truthful about the extent and duration of his contact with Epstein, demonstrating a pattern of deception that the palace could no longer ignore. The release of Virginia Giuffre's compelling memoir, Nobody's Girl, in October 2025, was the last nail in the coffin of his public image. This event occurred shortly after the publication of the book. A fresh and more graphic account of her claimed abuse was included in the book, which rekindled the storm. Giuffre said that Andrew behaved as if he felt that having sexual relations with her was his birthright. He used this phrase to characterize the three purported sexual experiences that he had with Andrew. The publishing of the book occurred at the same time as Andrew's financial situation was being scrutinized once again, and he continued to remain at Royal Lodge. On the 21st of October, the Daily, The Times, stated that he had technically been living rent-free in the home that had 30 rooms for the last 20 years. The peppercorn rent agreement, which consisted of a symbolic payment of 1 peppercorn per year in exchange for the maintenance of the residence, was met with considerable condemnation from politicians and the general public. These individuals questioned the rationale of a disgraced royal continuing to live in a luxury that was under the financial support of taxpayers. A step forward is taken by King Charles. The choice that King Charles III made to deprive his brother of his house was obviously distressing, but it was still essential from a strategic standpoint. The fact that Andrew remained to reside at the center of the Windsor estate was a persistent thorn in the side of the monarchy, serving as a perpetual reminder of a scandal that could not be forgotten. There was a decision that the king had to make that was difficult to make. Either he could exile his own brother and run the danger of being accused of being cruel to his family, or he could let the constant drumbeat of bad headlines inflict additional reputational harm on the organization that he now heads. Up until this moment, Andrew's lease on Royal Lodge, which was for 75 years, had already afforded him the legal protection necessary to continue living there. It is a legal maneuver aimed at circumventing that protection, and the official notification to relinquish that lease is meant to accomplish that. The statement issued by the palace was put together with great care, but its message was crystal clear. The time for making excuses had come to an end. A future that is uncertain, where will they choose to go? Andrew Ferguson and Sarah Ferguson are now facing an uncertain future as a result of the eviction notice that was delivered. It has been established that Andrew will be presented with an alternative private lodging option, most likely a home on the expansive Sandringham estate in Norfolk that is situated on a smaller scale. A transfer to Sandringham, the private estate of the royal family, would essentially put Andrew in a type of controlled exile, since he would be removed from the public eye and the royal court at Windsor. Sandringham has been used for a long time as a refuge away from public scrutiny. Notably, Sarah Ferguson will not be accompanying him in this endeavor. According to a source close to the Duchess of Ferguson, it is highly unlikely that Ms. Ferguson will relocate to Sandringham. Sources close to the Duchess have stressed her resolve to chart her own path. According to one source, she has never asked for a property or any provision for herself, which is contrary to the stories that have been circulating. Another person with knowledge of the situation shared this sentiment, adding, "She is focused on beginning a new chapter on her own terms. She will continue to forge that independent life. It is going to be her own initiative that she moves ahead." The connection between the pair undergoes a considerable and conclusive change as a result of this physical separation. Despite the fact that they had divorced, they had been able to keep their family unit together under the same roof. This had been a distinguishing characteristic of their life. As a realistic realization that her intimate affiliation with Andrew has become professionally and socially unacceptable, Ferguson's choice to live apart implies that she has come to terms with this reality. Andrew is in a perilous position from a financial standpoint. Due to the fact that he was compelled to stand down from royal responsibilities in 2019, he does not have any formal source of income. It is common knowledge that King Charles would give him a secret stipend that will not be published in order to cover his essential living costs. But the opulent lifestyle that he used to enjoy is no longer available to him. In the year 2023, there were already rumors circulating that the king intended to reduce Andrew's yearly payment. If this had been the case, Andrew would have been unable to cover the significant expenses that were associated with maintaining Royal Lodge. In her capacity as a private person, Sarah Ferguson is required to depend on her own earnings. A prominent author of children's books and historical fiction, she has also been involved in a variety of business endeavors. Her career has been built on the foundation of her writing. An issue that still has to be answered is whether or not these endeavors are capable of supporting the lifestyle that she has been used to. Reactions from the public and politicians. The response of the general public to the bold action taken by King Charles has been overwhelmingly positive, with a broad view that the measure was not only necessary, but also long overdue. "It's about time," said Robert Jenrick, who is the Shadow Justice Secretary, in an interview with the BBC. It would be best for Prince Andrew to give himself some time apart to live in seclusion and figure out his own path in life. He has brought shame upon himself. On several occasions, he has caused the royal family to feel ashamed. To tell you the truth, I don't see any reason why the taxpayer in any way should continue to foot the tab. The people are sick and tired of him. This view reflects the fact that a larger portion of the people is dissatisfied with the way the monarchy has handled the situation. The anti-monarchy movement has been increasingly outspoken in recent years. Protests were conducted at the entrance to Windsor Great Park by activists from the organization Republic. They demanded that Andrew be brought before the criminal justice system and that the royal family be held responsible for what they perceived to be years of shielding him. A crucial moment for the monarchy to live through. One of the most significant turning points in the history of the British monarchy was when King Charles made the choice to expel his brother. It indicates a fundamental change in priorities, putting the long-term health and prestige of the institution above personal family allegiance, which is a balance that the House of Windsor has often found to be difficult to achieve. The historical analogies are stark as they are. Before leaving for a life of exile, the freshly abdicated King Edward VIII left his family at Royal Lodge in December 1936. He was going to spend the rest of his life apart from them. Because of this dilemma, which was the result of a conflict between personal desire and civic obligation, the monarchy was put under a fundamental assault. A comparable existential danger has been presented in the contemporary age by Andrew's fall from grace, despite the fact that it is very different in character. The ultimate act in a tragedy that Andrew and Ferguson have brought upon themselves is the eviction from this historic mansion at the end of the story. The narrative of Royal Lodge, which was once a symbol of the idyllic life of royal families, as shown in the iconic painting by Herbert James Gunn from 1950, titled Conversation Piece at the Royal Lodge, Windsor, has now become a cautionary tale. In this story, the consequences of unfettered privilege, the moral deterioration that may occur as a result of poisonous relationships, and the ultimate cost of lies are all discussed. While Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is getting ready to leave the mansion that has been his home for the past 20 years, and Sarah Ferguson is thinking about a new independent future, there is one truth that is still unmistakable: the devastating consequences of their association with Jeffrey Epstein have finally and irrevocably caught up with them. They are being sent out not into freedom, but into a permanent and public exile, permanently shadowed by the choices they made and the company they kept. The gilded cage of royal luxury has been unlocked, and they are being tossed out. In the 21st century, a monarchy that is struggling to maintain its relevance must face a reckoning that is not only essential, but also severe. Thank you for watching the video. Please let us know your thoughts, and goodbye for now.